Welcome to another episode of Inspiration Motives. Today's leadership lesson, I'm just going to be sharing with you my PTSD experience. Um, so, this one's a little bit of a touchy one, but I figured if this could help somebody else, it'd be good to talk about it. Um, so, growing up, PTSD, all I knew about it was what you see on TV and like the extreme cases and things like that you would see. And I remember growing up, one of my buddies went to Iraq, and I remember him coming back one time with one of his friends from his unit. They were in the Marines, and we were at a party, and couple guys came in. They were Muslim. They had like the Muslim attire on, and I remember my buddy's friend. Literally, he was drinking. As soon as he saw them, he completely zoned out, kind of caught flashback as if they were back in Iraq, and went to my buddy and was telling him, he's like, hey, like these are the guys that killed so and so, and he was just very, and we had to get him out the situation pretty much. So we took him home, got him away from the situation and everything, but he was very locked on, very like he thought he was back over there. That's what my first initiation with PTSD was, as far as like what I thought it was, like the only way that I thought PTSD was, like the extreme things. I also knew a guy when I was active duty who was in the Army. He told me one time where they threw a party for him at his girlfriend's house, and he blacked out, and he didn't realize anything. He blacked out, thought he was clearing houses overseas, so had no idea what was going on. His girlfriend was the one that was able to luckily snap him out of it, but when she snapped him out of it, he realized he had everybody in the party in the corner of a room with a gun pointed at them, and he had made them all give up their cell phones and everything. As soon as his girlfriend brought him back to where he realized what he did, he legit just broke down, started crying, realized he needed help, he needed to check in, and that's what I thought PTSD was. Like, I thought that's the only versions of PTSD. With me, I've deployed to Iraq once, Afghanistan twice. During my experiences, I remember in Iraq, we dealt with mortars all the time. Usually our systems kind of suck, so the mortars would hit. As soon as the mortars hit, then you knew a couple more were coming in, but when the alarm started going off, it was after the mortar already hit. We got so numb to it because it was a common occurrence that we didn't even think nothing of it. We just, when the alarms would go off, we're like, all right, we have X amount of time before we're going to do accountability, pretty much. That same deployment, I remember getting forward deployed to Kabul. In Kabul, that's where I noticed how dead to it we were. I remember, so my job in the military, I'm a 3-3. I do structural engineering for the Air Force. I'm currently a master sergeant. At this time, I was low ranking. So I'm working on a roof right across from the flight line, and all of a sudden I hear boom, 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 boom. The roof is freaking shaking. I look up, I just see a bunch of smoke. It looked like it was on the flight line. The master sergeant that was in charge of us at the time walks by. He's like, oh, don't worry about that. That's on the other side. You're good. Keep working. So without batting an eye, asking questions, literally we just kept working. And the thing was, we were located right across from the hospital. So next thing you know, too, the ambulance start coming, unloading bodies and stuff like that. What it was they unloaded a vehicle, V-bed, so a vehicle bomb pretty much to the front gate, and then started shooting rockets in right after. So it hurt a bunch of people at the front gate, blew out the windows to the BX. But we were so numb to it, it didn't even faze us. It was like we just kept working like it was nothing. So fast forward a few years later, I end up getting deployed to Afghanistan again, and this time deployed to Bagram. So we would get rockets in every once in a while. We were getting rockets in, but we would joke around because we were like they would never hit anything. It would just land in the middle of nowhere, hit a random sewer cover or something. Like it was always they never really had good aim for the most part when it seemed like when I was there. And so one of the things I did on my off time, which I say off time, we're working 12-hour days, 6 days a week. Um, but I still wanted to do something to keep busy on my off hours. So I volunteered at the main base hospital as a pharmacy tech because that's what I used to be a pharmacy tech before going into the military. I remember going to the hospital asking if I could volunteer. And at first they looked at me like I was crazy, like I was just trying to score some pills or something. And then they're like, you do know only people with licenses are allowed to work. And I was like, I have my license. I was like, calm down. Like I'm not one of those. So they start laughing. They're like, yeah, just talk to the pharmacist and, see what he says. If he's good with it, then we're good with it kind of thing. So the pharmacist was a major. He starts talking to me. And one of the questions he asked me is, are you okay with seeing blood? I didn't think nothing of it. I'm just thinking it's a hospital in Afghanistan. So that's probably just why he's asking. Like, you're probably just going to see a few people here and there around there kind of messed up. And so I was just like, yeah. Um, Next thing you know, once I started working in the pharmacy on my off hours, I quickly realized why he said that. On my first shift, I got a wake up call. So the reason he asked that was because the way that pharmacy works is when people are injured in the battlefield um, or things like that, they'll medevac them onto that base because that was like the main base at the time. So they would treat majority of the serious injuries. So we would get a notification through a 9 line that they're gonna have a medevac coming in. As soon as the medevac would land, a trauma alert would go over the hospital. We would have to shut down the pharmacy. The pharmacy had pretty much like those metal like store gates. So you would shut down the pharmacy. We had to-go bags. They were set up almost like medic bags. So we had two to-go bags. You would have to grab them. You run into the ER. In the ER, they had it was like a big room, probably about 12 beds maybe. And we would sit our bags on the last bed. And pretty much we'd be there waiting with the doctors or nurses. And next thing you know, the bodies would start coming in on litters through the doors, and they'll start plopping them onto each bed. And the doctors will start yelling out medications. Us and the pharmacist are filling it. The pharmacist checks it real quick. We literally go to whatever bed it is, hand it directly to the nurse. The nurse's ministers are right there. And pretty much that. So we were in the midst of everything. So we saw everything. Legs blown off, arms blown off, shrapnel injuries, shrapnel to the face, things like that. After a while, you picked up on stuff because it's sometimes pretty much once the nurses got one patient stable, they were on to the next sometimes. So if they forgot something, if their legs were blown off and they were able to, they stopped the bleeding, they had a bandage up, we would take blankets and put them over their legs or something just to keep their legs warm. So you picked up on stuff like that. But I was able to deal with that. I was fine. And then the other thing I used to do on my off hours while I was there was cast admissions, they're called. So it was pretty much with those same wounded. Whenever they would get them stable, pretty much they would send them on a plane out at all different times. They'll send these people out. So we would end up, you would get them on a litter, end up going onto the flight line, and pretty much we had big planes that they set up pretty much like as a flying ICU. So they'll have almost like shelves, and you can stack the litters on top, almost like bunk beds. If the person was able to walk, somewhat walk, you would just help them walk onto there. But if they couldn't, you would just unload them from the bus on the litter, and you just literally just stack them. So there was one day that I still remember because it was about 2 weeks before we were getting ready to leave. and randomly freaking the Taliban gets lucky. They, in the middle of the night, they sent some rockets in, and there's a couple army guys and females waiting at a bus stop. They had just gotten off of work or shift or something, waiting on a bus stop on base, and somehow freaking they hit this bus stop. As soon as I found out, me and the guy actually found out because there's a few guys that used to do the cast submissions with me from my unit. We were adamant, like, hey, like, we're going to do that cast submission before we leave to load them onto these planes, to get them, to send them so they could get their, their help or whatever. And the reason we enjoyed doing it, it was those cast submissions was because we were experienced doing it for so long, because we volunteered so much doing it, that we just wanted it to be the most comfortable experience for the person. Because if you know anything about carrying litters, you got 4 people to a litter carrying, and if somebody doesn't know what they're doing, they might be rocking the litter a little bit, like kind of shaking the litter. That person's already uncomfortable, hurting. You do not want to be moving that litter like that all over the place, and almost, God forbid, freaking almost having them fall and things like that. So we felt, because we were so experienced, we took pride in being able to help these guys, because we figured if we were ever in that position, we would want people to take it serious and, make it as comfortable as possible for us. So we decided to do that cast submission. There's a female on the flight that was a CCAT, they call it. So CCAT was usually they had like a bunch of machines hooked up to them to keep them going. So you could tell she was very young, and I noticed her battle buddy, because Army always travels with a battle buddy. So her battle buddy was holding a teddy bear. So I went and asked her battle buddy. I was like, hey, like, what's with the teddy bear? So he goes and tells me, he's like, yeah, her birthday just passed. Her birthday was literally like a couple of days prior or something like that. Or it was I think it was a couple of days prior. And she was, I think, 20 or 21. She was super, super young. So I told one of the master sergeants that was doing the cast submission with me. So he talked to the flight crew, and the flight crew decided that we were all going to sing her a happy birthday before she took off. So mind you, like, her face, she wasn't moving. She was very, she was messed up. And I remember us all singing happy birthday to her. And all of a sudden she let out like a slight grin from her face. Like, you could see it was hard for her to move her face, but she ended up grinning like a happy grin when we sang her the happy birthday. Fast forward, it wasn't until maybe a few years later. Mind you, I've been through all this different stuff. Even in Iraq, I used to have bad dreams where, for some reason, like, reality was jacked up when I was in Iraq, like, in my head. But it didn't bother me. It was just, I was just having messed up dreams. I would, for some reason, think I was home saving, like, my family members from, attacks and stuff like that, from as if we were in a war zone kind of thing. Like, it was weird. But none of that ever affected me, which is crazy. And then it wasn't until a few years after that last deployment to Afghanistan that there was a Facebook page that I followed, that during Memorial Day, they would do like different posts of like different people that passed away and give like a story about them, how they passed, or things like that. And I read this story, and I'm reading the thing, and all of a sudden I put 2 and 2 together. It was literally the Army soldier that we sang happy birthday to that day. So that, once I saw that she actually passed, because she was technically alive when she left us, when I saw that she passed, that shit hit me hard. And it was like, I remember, till this day, I could still remember her face and everything, her smirk, everything. And I remember, because of that, like Memorial Days and Veterans Day, I would If I had the day off, I wouldn't do it when I was work if I had to work. But if I had the day off, usually I spent my day literally just drinking and watching military movies. That was my Memorial Days and Veterans Day, how I spent it. And then my one of my best friends, he lost some people in Iraq, so we would just, whether we were together or we were separate, we would always take a shot for, for his buddies and the people we lost. So it wasn't till a while later that my wife brought it up to me, and she knows what PTSD is because she she did EMS for a while. She has her own PTSD that she deals with from her EMS days and things like that. So she she ends up telling me the one day, and she's like, "Hey, like, you do know you have PTSD, right?" And I'm looking at her like she's crazy. Like, what the hell are you talking about? And then she starts pointing out all these little things. And like, she brought up the drinking, the heavy drinking on Memorial Day, Veteran Day stuff, watching the military movies. Um, she did witness one time where we were living in Florida, and we they had like a nuclear plant. They do like testing on the alarm systems every once in a while. I didn't know that they had that there. So the first time that they put the alarm system to sound, we were outside and that alarm went off, and it was pretty much the same alarm when I was in Iraq. So when that when that alarm went off, literally I just kind of pretty much told her to shut up because we're in like middle of conversation. I pretty much told her to shut up. I got super tense, looked around to see where the sound was coming from, and just wanted to listen to what it was saying. And I was so like, as soon as that happened in my head, I'm like, I was military mode, like, hey, like we might be getting attacked, like let me get ready. And then I realized like it was only just a testing of the system. So I turned back to her. She looks at me, and she's like, "You got PTSD?" Like, she's like you turn super serious. She's like, "I've never seen you get in that mode like that. Like you could tell, like you were ready to go. Like you were ready to do whatever you had to do, kind of thing." And so she ends up talking me into. She was like, "Just go to the VA, schedule a thing just to go talk to somebody." She was like, "Just it might do you some good, just getting it off your chest, maybe, blah blah." So I always had that stigma. Like I've always heard bad experiences a lot of times with the VA, where people are like, "Hey, like I don't feel like they're talking to me like I'm a person. Like they feel like I'm just a check, like a checkbox. They're just going down the list of questions. Like they're not really relating." So somebody suggested for me to go to a vet clinic. That the vet clinic, I went to one in Jupiter, I remember, and I went there. They're like, because it's more of a, they don't make it seem like you're getting evaluated. It's more of a conversation, more of a just bullshit back and forth. It literally took me that one meeting with that person, and that's all that it took to fix me. It was weird, but everything came out, everything clicked. Like as I start telling them the different things I saw, because like one of the other things I seen when my last Afghanistan deployment, which was shitty, was we seen a plane go down, but we were literally the first ones. We were watching this plane, saying how it looks kind of weird, and next thing you know, we see the freaking nose point up, and as soon as we saw that, we were literally right in front of the emergency operations center, and our commander was there with us, so he literally ran in, told our emergency managers pretty much that the plane was coming down before the plane even hit. And I remember the plane coming down. I remember me and my buddy that I was with running towards the flight line. It's just a big black ball of smoke. We're running towards the flight line because your initial instinct is you want to help. As we're running, the cops come out. They're like, "Hey, like, why are you guys running?" And we tell them like, "Hey, a plane just fucking came down." So then they start running. And then halfway while we're running to the flight line, like we realize like there's nothing that we're going to be able to do. Like that's all rocket fuel. That's all, there's nothing at all that we're going to be able to do. So it was the most shitty feeling knowing that you can't help. You see that there, you like, you want to help, but it's up to the fire guys now to put out that fire, and if anybody survived, which nobody ended up surviving, um, and it ended up being a civilian plane too. But like these were all things I dealt with. So when I'm talking to the guy, I let him know all the incidents I've dealt, like seen all the things I've seen, what's affected me, blah blah blah. And then it clicked to me with the whole like drinking and the Memorial Day and Veterans Day and watching movies and stuff. He asked me about my father. My father was a Vietnam vet. Growing up, I didn't think of it till that very moment. When I was a little kid, my dad used to watch Vietnam movies all the time. And he would be drinking, watching Vietnam movies. And when he would drink and watch these Vietnam movies, there was a bunch of times where I could see his eyes get watery and like tears start coming out. So as soon as he felt like tears were going to come out, he'd get up and leave the room because he didn't want me to see him tearing up or crying or nothing. So I knew he had PTSD as well, but that's how he dealt with it. And hindsight 2020, now realizing, think I was dealing with it the same way. And lo and behold, it was because that's what I learned from him, kind of, and the pretty much like what ended up clicking to me, because then it was almost like survivor's guilt. So what ended up clicking to me when we started talking about it was I end up like it just clicked. Like I said, everything just clicked in that moment. Like that, I guess needed to get it all off my chest, and then that's all I needed. So he asked me how I felt about the whole situation with the female that passed and stuff like that, and I told him, I was like, I've actually been able to spin it in a positive way, which obviously is not positive about her passing, but I don't make excuses. If I know that like I want to do something, but it seems hard or whatever the case may be, like I don't make excuses. I try to go after it. If for some reason I fail, at least I tried. But the way I always look at it is like, she's not here, so she would kill to have that opportunity to have been able to, live her life and be able to have all these goals and do these, have these different experiences. So I pretty much lived through her. Like that's the way I ended up spinning it, was that like where it's hard to, I'm always in a good mood. Like it's hard to get me in a bad mood. If I fail at something, if something bad happens in my life, I'm grateful for the little things. So it doesn't bother me. It doesn't faze me. I just learn from it and move on. But that was my like experience. And one thing that I've noticed with when it comes to other vets is sometimes just being able to get it all out on the table is what works. Sometimes they need a hobby, like they have to find something else that brings them joy or keeps them busy, keeps their mind busy, things like that. But I've had so many military friends where like we'll start talking about our deployment experiences and things like that, or even like firefighters and cops and stuff like that, like, and we just click right away. Like the moment we open up a little bit of that box, they open wide open, and next thing you know, they're venting to me and they're letting me know everything that affects them, everything that they've been going through. And then we just bounce back and forth off each other a little bit, like how to spin it, how to put a positive vibe onto it, different perspectives to look at it and things like that, things to appreciate, and it helps them. So I thank my wife, because my wife was the one that was able to get me to open up like that. And I'm always honest with her. Like that's the one good thing, being that she was EMS and all that stuff. Even when I was a cop and dealt with stuff on the cop side, like I could talk to her literally about anything, and she's good with it. Like it doesn't phase her, because I know she could talk, and she knows she could talk to me about any of her situations too. But that's one thing that I I suggest to everybody, like, there's always that stigma with mental health where people are afraid, especially in the military, people are afraid to go get help or talk to somebody because they think it's going to affect their career. No. Like, you could go talk to a chaplain, you could go talk to your supervisor, you could go talk to one of your friends, you could talk to a counselor, you could talk to a VA counselor or psychologist. Um, you could you want to be able to talk to somebody. You don't want to bottle it up, because what ends up happening when you bottle everything up, it's going to come out at the worst time. Um, it's gonna pretty much like a cup. Once it overflows, that's when it's gonna come out, and it's not gonna be good. It's gonna be a mess. So I always say, when I see people having mental health issues when I'm within the military and outside, like, I always suggest them to go get help. I try to normalize the talking to somebody. Um, I know plenty of people that they're still in the military. I'm still in the military. Um, so just don't feel don't feel that, you're less than people or anything like that. Like, everybody goes through shit. And the thing is, sometimes you might have all this stuff going on, you might not realize it. You have PTSD, and it's just one thing ends up triggering it for you. Like, in my case, like I said, I seen all types of shit, and for me, what triggered it was, you know, about 3 years later, when I seen that post on Facebook with realizing that female had passed away. That's what triggered it. And so that's the thing. So I just wanted to be vulnerable, share my experience with you, because I know sometimes it's hard for people to share their experiences like that. They feel some kind of way. They feel embarrassed. Maybe they feel, like they're not manly enough or something. Like, they just feel they're not hard anymore. You could be hard and still fucking deal with shit. Um, so that's my take on it. Just know there's all types of help for it. Um, like I said, see the chaplain, talk to your supervisor, talk to your friends, talk to you know, your relatives, your wife, somebody who you feel is going to be able to, just listen, and even somebody that might relate. It might be just going into like a veterans group to just talk and share experiences together. But whatever you do, like, don't just let that shit bottle up. Take that step. And um, on the other side of the spectrum, if you got people that like guys in your unit, and or people you supervise and things like that have these issues, be there for them. Like, this is one of the reasons that I try to tell people, like, you have to have that balance when you're leading, as far as they should be able to come to you with any of the problems they have. This is one of the reasons why. Like, you want them to feel comfortable to be able to open up to you and deal with this. Like, I've dealt with people in my unit before committing suicide, not within my shop, but within other shops within my squadron, things like that. And that's one thing that a lot of times that their supervisors will mention, is that they wish that they had that they were that close to the individual, where that individual could have felt comfortable coming to them to vent to them, where maybe that could have changed the outcome of the situation. But instead, the person might have felt alone, didn't feel comfortable around the people they worked with, and just kept it bottled up, and end up committing the act. So I just want you to take it serious. When people have issues, toss the other shit to the side and get them their help that they need. Um, it's never going to be perfect, cut and dry, but you got to help them. You got to help each other. And the thing is, especially if you're still in the military, when it comes to deployments and things like that, being able to understand your thoughts and also being able to see the signs when people are dealing with PTSD and other mental health issues is big when you're deployed, because you could literally pretty much extinguish the fire before it even starts. One of my actually my last probably 2 deployments, there's so many people going through different mental health issues. And as soon as I would freaking figure it out, because usually it might be from them, lashing out at people over, like, fighting over every little thing, being moody, being quiet. Like, you're able to pinpoint, like, to pick these things out. And as soon as I would pick it out, I would right after work be like, hey, let's go hang out here. Or if I'm going on a job, like, hey, can you come help me with this? So I could spend the day with them and actually get to the bottom. And next thing you know, they're venting to me, let me know what's going on, and then we're able to fix the situation and kind of, at least let them have their voice be heard and unload a little bit, so their shoulders aren't so heavy. Um, so that's the big takeaway lesson from this. Be vulnerable. Notice when you're off. When you're a lot of times when you're going to be off, if something's not right, talk to somebody. And if you see other people dealing with situations, or you see they're not their normal self, try to figure out what's going on. A lot of times they're not going to want to do it in front of people, so that's why, like, I like to either take them on a job with me where it's just us two working, or be like, hey, let's go get a bite to eat after work or something, or for lunch or something. And that way, we get away from everybody and they're able to kind of, you could pick at what's going on. But I hope this helps. Like I said, it's more just my personal experience. I figured if it helps one person, that's all that matters. So thanks for listening. Till next time.